everybody.
Hi,
Kayla Lords,
John Brownstone.
loving BDSM. Back for 5 more things we think you need to know about insert BDSM topic here. This week we are talking about DS contracts.
Yes.
Now, for a very quick, brief overview, a DS contract is simply the agreement between a dominant and a submissive that you make between yourselves, typically at the beginning of a relationship. It doesn't have to be, it can happen later as well, but that's usually when it happens. And it's the things that you will do, you won't do, hard limits, boundaries, what you want your relationship to look like is essentially what a DS contract is.
Number 1, contracts are not required.
So people get very worried about the idea of a DS contract. The question I think we get the most is, do I have to have one? And the answer is, no, you do not. Some people like them. We'll go through some of the reasons in this video why people tend to use them. But if you're not interested in having an actual contract between you and your partner, you don't have to have one. It is completely up to you. We started out with a pretty formal contract.
Yes.
And now, after all these years together, we just know who we are, what we want, and we don't write it down.
It helped to establish our boundaries
Sure.
in the beginning. And
especially in the beginning.
Yes.
And a lot of people do like it for a new relationship in the beginning of a relationship, but it's not required.
Right. Number 2, contracts do not have to be formal.
So that's the first thing to know. Some people want a very formalized, in writing, even with legal speak contract. And if you look around online, you will find templates that you can use for that. But that's not a requirement either. You can take a scratch piece of paper off your desk and write out a few things and call that your contract. We used a shared Google Doc?
Google Doc,
We used a shared Google Doc, and you typed it up and I looked it over, and then if one of us wanted to make changes, we did that with the other's knowledge, and it was just it lives in the cloud. I think it's still
on the cloud.
It's still on the cloud now.
Yep.
But it doesn't have to be something really formal. It can just be a numbered list of, we will do this, we won't do that. And that's if you even have a contract at all.
Number 3, contracts should be reviewed regularly.
If you're going to have a contract, you should go over it periodically. Periodically is subjective. Once a month, once every 6 months, once a year. It doesn't really matter. This rule applies even if you don't have a contract. Relationships should be reviewed periodically.
Correct.
What you're looking for, with or without a contract, is, do these rules work for us? Does this protocol work for us? Do the tasks that we set, do the boundaries still apply? Some things that you might think you will never do when you're new to DS, 6 months to a year in, you're like, oh yeah, that's on my bucket list now. So if having a contract works for your relationship and that makes you feel better, or makes you, it's something you want to have, it needs to be a living document. It can't be stuck in one place, because your relationship won't be stuck in one place. Sometimes you will make changes in your relationship that you didn't refer to your contract before you did. Most of us are like that. And that's fine too. For us, we started with a contract, and then we tried to actually create a new one when we moved in together.
Yes.
And that didn't last. The actual contract part, it stopped being relevant to us. It was easier just to make adjustments to our relationship day in and day out as we needed to. But some people like having it written down and going back to that document to refer back to it. If you're going to do that, have it change with you. Go over it every so often and say, oh, that doesn't apply anymore. Oh, we added this. Oh, we took this out. And talk through the various things. If you're not in a position where you're regularly talking about your relationship and making adjustments as you go, those regular reviews will be a great time to do it. So you can open up the conversation of, oh, well, this rule's been in place. How is this working? And then you can decide from there whether to keep it or to change it or to trash it.
Adjust accordingly.
Exactly.
Number 4, contracts aren't legally binding.
This is not, I don't even care if you get it notarized, y'all. This is not something that will hold up in court. And the only reason I know that is because the few cases that we hear about in the news where it's about BDSM and somebody pulled out their DS contract, a judge kind of went, yeah, that
No.
doesn't mean anything. So you can feel better having it in writing, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Mm-hmm.
Do not think that if somebody violates this contract with you that you can use it against them later. It is something for you to use it as a tool to use in a relationship if you choose to. It's not a legal document. Now, if you're an attorney, a lawyer, and you understand contract law and there's a way to make it legal, feel free to comment below and educate the rest of us. But the typical DS couple's typical standard contract, no, it's not an official contract. It's a tool you're using.
It's a personal contract.
It's a very
between
personal
two people.
contract, but that's all that it is. Right. So it's not quite as serious as you might have thought of it. And the reason I say that, and the reason we have to talk about this, is that there are predators and gross people out there who will say, well, we have a contract. You have to do this with me. No, you don't. No, you don't. Having that contract does not mean you can't withdraw your consent at any point, okay? The contract is meaningless unless both of you actually want and choose to abide by it. Mm-hmm. So nobody can hold that over your head that y'all have a contract together. Do not let them.
Okay. Number 5, contracts are a good way to stay organized.
The only thing I personally enjoyed about having an official DS contract on a personal level was that we were organized. There was a list. Yeah. Here's what we'll do. Here's what we won't do. Here's what the expectations are.
Right.
And so even if you don't have a really formalized, pretty typed up contract, it can be a great way to just know where you're both at and know what you both want, so that there's a lot less confusion too. Especially when you're new to DS, especially if you're talking about doing a lot of different things and you're going to start a whole bunch of stuff at once, and here's all these rules, and here's all these things you will do, and here's all these things you won't do, here's all these different boundaries. Then when you can't remember, or there's a dispute between you, you can, if you choose to, use it and go back and refer and go, wait, no, we didn't set that rule. Or, yes, that was one of the things we said we would do or wouldn't do. And then you have it there, and you don't have to try and rely on your memory. And that I have found in talking to a lot of different kinksters is a really good way to determine if one partner is honest or not. Because are they doing the things that they agreed to do? Are they playing dumb and saying, I didn't know. You know, personally, my personal rule is I'll let you play dumb once, and then I'm going to bring out the thing and go see where we agreed. And then you don't get to play dumb again. We've now had this conversation, and we know we've had this conversation. So like we said before, it's a good tool if that's meaningful to you, if it's something you want. Some people use it for just comfort. They know it's written down, and they can refer back to that. And when there's a question, they refer back to that. But that, I think, for both of us, is really all that a DS contract is. Yeah. If it's important to you to have one. Nothing wrong with it. Right. If it's not, don't worry about it. If it helps you stay organized, great. If it helps make sure that both of you know exactly what you're consenting to and what you're agreeing to do in your DS relationship, go for it. Use it. Nothing wrong with it. And if it worked in the beginning and now it doesn't fit your life, don't force it. Go with what works for you now, even if that's not what worked 6 months or a year ago. So this is not everything there is about DS contracts. No. That's kind of a big, broad topic. If there are other things that you think people ought to know about a DS contract, please leave a comment below and share with the rest of us. In the description, we will have links to all the other places where we've talked about DS contracts if you want to sort of dive into this topic a little bit more. And if you like what we do here, consider joining us on Patreon, patreon.com/Kayla Lords. You have to go directly to that URL, type it in, click the link. You cannot search for us on Patreon. You will not find us. And you can join for as low as $1 a month and help us keep doing all of this.
Yes, indeed.
Exactly.